all, welcome back to Recurrent, now with even simpler math. I'm Liz. Electric vehicles are revolutionizing transportation, but with all of that revolution comes some confusing concepts and a lot of jargon. So we're here to simplify it for you so you can drive confidently. All right, today we're going to talk about DC fast charging speeds, which honestly is a complicated topic and kind of the reason why you need explainer videos, unfortunately. Most EV drivers do charge at home, but if you're on a road trip or you're one of the 10 to 20% of EV drivers who only use DC fast chargers, you're going to need to power up pretty quickly. Now, just how quickly can you recharge your battery? Unfortunately, that is not a simple question. By the end of the video, you're going to understand peak charge speeds, charge curves, and some tips to help you get the most out of your DC fast charging experience. Okay, let's start with the basics. kW and kWh. They look and sound really similar, but what a difference that one letter can make. kW stands for kilowatts, and it's a unit of power. It's how quickly a charger can deliver energy to your car's battery. Think about it as how quickly water pours out of a faucet. Sometimes it's really fast, and sometimes it's just a trickle. When it comes to kilowatts, more means faster. Kilowatt hours, or kWh. And that's a unit that measures energy or capacity. It's basically how big the bucket is or how much electricity your battery can hold. And it's actually like a pretty reasonable comparison to the size of a gas tank. So let's talk charging speeds, which is the reason we're here. So for your car, there's going to be a peak or maximum charging speed, which is how fast your particular EV can receive electricity. This is like built into the make and model and year of the car. It's non-negotiable. For instance, the Chevy Bolt, which is a car that we love at Recurrent, has a max fast charge speed of 55 kilowatts. On the other hand, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 has a max charge speed or peak charge rate of 350 kilowatts. That's a lot faster. Okay, so if you take your Bolt that can charge at 55 kilowatts and you plug it into a 55 kilowatt charging station, that's how quickly you'll get electricity going into your battery. On the other hand, if you take your Bolt and you charge it into a 400 kilowatt charging station, you're still only going to receive energy at 55 kilowatts. Meanwhile, if you charge your Ioniq 5 at a faster charging station, it will recharge faster. But here's the thing, you're not going to stay at your max or your peak charging speed the whole time. It's unfortunate but true that charging speeds are not just a matter of the size of your battery in kilowatt hours and the charging speed in kilowatts. It turns out that the charger's output and even things like the weather are going to have an impact on your charging speed. But most of all, how quickly you charge is going to depend on the state of charge of your battery or what charge percentage it's at. EV batteries fill up faster when they're at a low state of charge. The max usually happens when your battery's at 10 to 20%. And then the speed of the charge slows down as your battery fills up. Now this happens to protect your battery, so it may seem complicated, but it's actually good for your car. When and how quickly your charge speed changes is called the charging curve for your EV. It's usually specific to make, model, and year. There may be some variation between individual cars of the same make and model year. So the real kicker here is that having a higher peak charge speed may not always mean that your battery fills up faster. How is this the case? Any EV will only hit its max charging speed for a certain amount of time, and an EV with a lower max charging speed actually charge faster if it stays at a higher rate longer than an EV that hits its max really fast and then quickly tapers off. I'm going to pass this off to friend of Recurrent, Andrew Lambrecht, who has more to say on the topic.
Thanks, Liz. You are totally correct. A higher peak charge rate does not necessarily correspond to faster charging times. First off, a peak charge rate merely tells you the maximum power an EV's battery can accept in optimal conditions, but there's no standard to how long the peak charge rate can be held for. First, let's consider the Tesla Model Y and the Nissan Ariya. The Tesla Model Y has a peak charge rate of 250 kilowatts, which is very high. However, the Tesla cannot sustain that speed for a long time. In fact, by the time the battery reaches around 50% state of charge, the charge rate has already fallen down to about 100 kilowatts. In fact, from 10 to 80%, the Tesla Model Y averages about 100 kilowatts. And that's because Tesla prioritizes faster charging speeds at low battery percentages. The upper end doesn't charge as fast, but you'll be able to go from say 0 to 20% in several minutes. But not all automakers follow this approach. Some take it very differently. Nissan does things differently. The Ariya has a much more constant charging curve, though the peak rate is much lower. It has a peak charging rate of just 130 kilowatts, which is not as high as a Tesla, but it will hold that rate pretty constantly up to around 50% state of charge. In other words, the Tesla will hit its peak and rapidly decline, whereas a Nissan will reach its peak, which is much lower, but it will plateau for a good bit. This lower from the get-go but more constant charge rate actually yields roughly the same average rate from 10 to 80% in the Nissan as does the Tesla. While the Tesla advertises a higher peak charge rate, it doesn't necessarily mean that the overall charging speed will be faster. It's like eating at a buffet. Some people will make a massive plate and dig in immediately, though they'll end up pretty full really quick. Others might eat at a slower speed, going one plate at a time.
Okay, here's just one more thing to remember. If the charging station you're at is really busy, you may not hit your peak charge speed at all. And that's because some charging stations, particularly older ones, split the energy between the chargers. Great, let's recap what we've learned here today and give a big thanks to Andrew. Number 1, kilowatts versus kilowatt hours. Kilowatts are a speed or a rate of energy transfer. It's like how much water comes out of the faucet. Kilowatt hours are the size of the bucket you're filling up, or how much energy your battery can store, or how big your gas tank is. Second, the speed that you can recharge your battery at depends on 3 things. The first is the size of your battery in kilowatt hours. The second is how fast your car can accept charge in kilowatts. And the third is how fast the charging station can deliver electricity, and that's also in kilowatts. Finally, we learned that charging happens fastest when your battery is at a low state of charge, usually around 10 or 20%. It depends again on your car. At some point while you're charging, the charge speed will slow down. It's definitely gonna happen by 60 or 80% state of charge. Again, this is to protect your battery, so it may seem like a bummer when you wanna refill really fast, but it'll help your EV. P.S. This is why really savvy EV drivers never bother to charge above 80% at a fast charger. It's gonna take more time than you'd think, and you might as well just find a level 2 charger. All right, we hope that this video helped you understand some things about DC fast charging and charge speeds. If it was helpful to you, please like it, share it, subscribe. You can always leave questions or comments below if you have questions about fast charging or an experience to share. And I promise you, real life members of the Recurrent team will see your questions and comments.